Greetings everyone, we're back to another fanfic read-through. This is episode 6 in the series and I'm reading Danny Phantom, my ghost crime fanfic, chapter 6. Enjoy. Sitting slumped down on a couch, an empty bottle of water in front of him and a mug of coffee in his hands, Danny sipped at the coffee and looked out the glass wall to where Sam and Tucker were sitting, their backs towards him, wearing a set of Fenton headphones each. His father had invented them to cancel out the noise of the everyday world and pick up the sounds of ghosts. When they had picked up Danny's voice, he had thrown them away as useless, but Sam and Tucker had found good use for them, listening to excuses Danny used to get out of trouble and coordinating their own stories, just like they were doing now. The door to the small room opened, and Agent Rossi held it open for his colleague, Tara Lewis, a dark-skinned woman with a look that reminded Danny of Jazz. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Daniel," said Rossi, closing the door as he and Lewis walked in. "I prefer Danny. Only my parents and Vlad calls me Daniel." It would have been polite for him to get up, but Danny didn't feel like moving much if he could avoid it. The short walk from the parking lot to the police station had hurt. He'd been grateful when Tucker lent him a shoulder to lean on. "Danny," said Lewis, sitting down on the small couch, a notebook and pen in her hands. "As we informed you before, you are not under arrest and do not have to answer our questions. What we would appreciate if you could tell us what happened in the alley and at the hospital, so that we might capture the unsub before anyone else gets killed." "Unsub?" asked Danny, trying to figure out if he'd ever heard the word before. "Unidentified subject, unsub. That's what we call the killers when we profile them before we have their identity. It helps not to put any gender or preconceptions to them before we can deliver a profile," explained Dr. Lewis, giving Danny a smile. Nodding, Danny slouched down lower in the couch. "What do you want to know?" he asked, having had time to come up with a pretty good explanation while waiting for them. "To start off, what you and your friends are doing in Chicago. You are from Emmett Park, right?" asked Rossi. He had taken a seat in a chair opposite Danny. "There's a convention about space travel in town," began Danny. "I want to go, and Tucker wanted to check out some new tech they got there, and I think Sam was going to a horror movie convention." He glanced over to his friend's back, seeing Sam nod slightly. "So what made you split up this evening?" asked Dr. Lewis. "I heard about this good place to get some takeout," said Danny, scratching his chin. "I told Sam and Tucker to go back to the room while I got the food." He could see Dr. Lewis was noting something down out of the corner of his eyes. "Then what happened?" asked Ross in a calm voice. Shrugging, Danny took another sip of coffee. "Thought I'd take a shortcut, turned into this alley, and there stood this man." "Can you describe him?" asked Rossi, leaning forward as he listened. "Tall, wearing a long dark coat and a broad-brimmed hat. Never saw his face." Danny scratched his nose and lowered his hand to hold the mug, staring into the dark coffee. "What happened then?" asked Dr. Lewis. Her eyes had narrowed at Danny's answer. "Saw the body, the killer saw me, and he attacked." He turned his mug, staring at his blurred reflection. "I managed to dodge some of the strikes, but didn't see the last one before." Danny trailed off, remembering the pain of the blade and how it felt like he was being absorbed by it. "The guy threw me on the dumpster, and I don't remember anything after the ground hit my head." Rossi was tapping his fingers as the silence wore on. Danny's eyes went over to Sam and Tucker's back. "Agent Rose said that you were attacked at hospital. Can you tell us what happened?" asked Rossi, finally breaking the silence. Closing his eyes, Danny thought back to the hospital. "I saw the killer come through the door." "It was the same attacker?" asked Rossi, surprise on his face. "Yeah," sighed Danny, raising an eyebrow. "Had they thought it was some stranger off the street or something?" "You are certain of that?" he asked. Danny rolled his eyes. He was completely certain that the killer in the alley and the attacker at the hospital was the same person, but couldn't say it without sounding crazy. "He looked the same and aimed for me," said Danny, explaining it the logical way. Agent Rossi shared a look with Dr. Lewis before he got up and walked out into the conference room where the rest of the BAU were working. "Did I say something wrong?" wondered Danny, looking over at Dr. Lewis. "No, you might just have given us what we need to close this case," she said, smiling back at him. Agent Rossi hadn't thought they'd get much out of the kid when he and JJ got to the police station, where they had been given their base of operation in the conference room with an accompanying interview room. He had introduced the kids to the rest of the team, asked Luke where the coffee he'd asked for was, before separating Danny from his friend and talking quickly to Detective Mike. He and Tara could see that Danny was hiding something. He looked over at his friends, avoided eye contact, and scratched his nose. All basic signs of lying. It could also be that he didn't want to remember something, but he could have given them a vital piece of information. "Emily, JJ," he said, walking out of the small room. "We need to check the videos from the hospital security camera. Our killer is the same guy who attacked you there." Prentice straightened from where she had been sitting, going over the forensic report of the last crime scene. "You sure about that?" she asked, grabbing her phone. "Yes," Ross turned to Agent Giraud, who had been watching the teenagers listen to music on the phones. "You go over the witness statement with the officers in charge." He was excited. They might be getting the break in the case. "I'm on it, but the attack at the hospital was aimed for me, not Daniel," said Jennifer, a puzzled look on her face. Rossi shrugged. "I haven't finished talking to the kid yet. See what you can find. We might catch an unsub soon." "Don't jinx it," Luke warned, from where he was sitting, a report in one hand and a mug of coffee in his other. "I didn't peg you as a superstitious kind," said Rossi as he turned back to the small room, not giving Luke a chance to answer. Walking back into the interview room, he sat down in front of Danny. The kid hadn't moved. Actually, the kid was oddly still, moving only his neck a little bit to look over at his friends and holding his mug close to his chest. "Sorry for taking off like that," said Rossi, giving the kid a reassuring smile. "It's fine," said Danny, blue eyes following Rossi's every move. "He's wary of us." "Could you continue with what happened at the hospital?" asked Tara, turning a new page in her notebook. Danny sipped his coffee, meeting Tara's eyes. "The killer came through the door, drew his sword out of his cane, and threw it at Agent Giraud, because she was standing in the way. I just reacted, shouting for her to get down, and pushed her out of the way." He turned his eyes back to his coffee. "We hit the floor as the lights exploded, and I told her to stay down." "You didn't stay with Agent Giraud?" asked Tara. It was a leading question, but Jennifer had told them that Danny had disappeared from the emergency room, and that she had found him outside with his friends. "No, I didn't." Danny met Tara's eyes. Not a lie. "Why did you leave?" asked Rossi. Danny's eyes turned to him. "I couldn't risk anyone else getting hurt because of me." There was regret in Danny's eyes. Had someone gotten hurt because of what he'd done, or hadn't done? Rossi and Lewis continued to question Danny, going over the story again and again, trying to find if he changed it or could remember anything more. In the end, they had only gotten some more details and a lot more questions. There was a hole in the kid's story, and he was still lying about something, but it was obvious that they couldn't get any more information out of him. "Thank you, Danny, for answering our questions," said Rossi, standing up and giving Danny his hand. Danny grimaced, getting up from where he had slumped in the couch. "Sure thing," he said, taking Rossi's hand. End of chapter 6.